Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Real Podcasters. This is the show where, as ever, we're talking all things movies, TV shows, video games, and a bunch of other things in no particular order. My name's Regan, as ever, and I'm joined once again by my surprisingly likeable co-host. It's Dan.
Yo ho ho, me hearties. How's it going?
Oh my god, How have we not made that joke yet?
I don't know. I really don't know.
I don't know how.
You would have thought we would have made it on like the first time we covered a Pirates of the Caribbean episode, and we didn't. We just insulted each other.
And yet somehow we just didn't. Well, yeah, that's usually how this works. And if that is the sort of thing you enjoy on this podcast for some reason.
Absolute barnacle encrusted crow's nest.
Do I keep the pause in, or do I just cut immediately to crow's nest?
No, you're just a...
We'll find out in the edit.
Anyway.
Anyway, God's sake. If this is the sort of thing you enjoy on this type of podcast, as ever, we're available on YouTube and Spotify. Make sure you're subscribed, following, liking, watching, any of that sort of stuff. Eventually I'll find a way to word all that very, very well.
No, you won't.
But yes, make sure you are supporting us. No, I won't. We're 67 episodes in. I don't know how to do that at all. Just like, please.
I don't know how to word episodes, let alone our own propaganda.
Wow, Dan. Wow. I've had a script for 64 of those episodes. I think you'll find. It isn't very obvious, but it's there.
Is that what we're calling it now?
Yes. Oh boy. But yes, make sure you are supporting us. That would be absolutely fantastic. So last week we spoke about Batman 1943. Well, I say last week, for us it's actually about 4 days ago.
Yeah,
because that's just how recording works. 4 or 5 days ago, I think it was.
The Batastrophe.
The offensive Batastrophe of Batman 1943.
Yep.
It felt like a pretty apt title. This week, though, we are concluding our look at Pirates of the Caribbean. And yes, I said concluding.
Yeah, we're not doing 4 and 5.
Because we're talking about the third film.
We're not doing 4 and 5.
No, I just finished 5 and it's...
Poo.
Just... No. I've got no time for that, as it turns out. It's only the second time I've watched it as well. Second time in 5 or 6 years.
I think I've watched it about the same, in all honesty. And it's still pretty dire.
And then, well, here we are talking about At World's End, and I've watched this film quite a lot, actually. I think it might have actually been the one I've watched the most of the 3, when I used to own it back on DVD, as they usually say. But yes, talking about At World's End, Dan, would you like to give us a bit of a brief synopsis as to what the hell is going on?
Because there is a lot going on, so I've kind of narrowed it down to this. A very recently reanimated Captain Barbossa and a bunch of pirates, including, the main guys, I guess, if you want to call them. If you can call them the main guys at this point. Sorry, I think the Ram's getting to me.
I was about to say, the energy level is kind of fluctuating between surprisingly high and
But anyway,
low.
Yeah, recently reanimated Captain Barbossa must lead a band of pirates to rescue none other than Captain Jack Sparrow from Davy Jones' locker and basically go kill Davy Jones.
Gotta get him, because we didn't do it last time, so we're gonna try it again.
Yeah.
You gotta love how the failed in the previous film, and so the next film is literally just trying to do that again.
Yeah.
That's very... it's really clever, isn't it? Except now it's nearly 3 hours long.
Except there's... that is, it's 3 hours long, and there's...
we'll get to that.
There's a lot.
There's a lot, yeah. So, I think for me, it's obviously the weakest of the 3. That being said, I still quite enjoy this one. In fact, I might have enjoyed it a little bit more on this rewatch than I did years ago.
You know what?
I haven't watched it for a very long time.
Recently rewatching it, I did enjoy it a little bit better. Actually, I can say that. Mm-hmm. Don't think it's still as good as the second film, but it's enjoyable.
Yeah, there's a little bit more heart to the second film. That's still here a little bit, but it's funnily enough.
There is a heart.
And Yeah, again, it's the exact same one. And to be honest, I'm always drawn to like the sense of finality in a lot of franchises. Like, there's a lot of third entries where I actually like them more than previous ones. I mean, this isn't the case. Like, I mean, something like Return of the Jedi,
like,
or even Back to the Future 3.
A bit like Bladder or Blade, because you've only watched the third one.
Yeah, that doesn't mean I liked it. It was terrible. Hated it. And that kind of put like a stinger on me watching the other two, even though I know people like those ones. I'm like, yeah, but no. But yeah, I mean, like, it's got a sense of finality to it, which I do appreciate. And to be honest, the action stuff is actually really, really cool. And it's relatively satisfying in terms of a conclusion. That being said, it is way too long.
Oh,
it
yeah.
does not need to be.
You could
3 hours.
quite easily chop up half of that runtime.
Yeah, I would have said so.
You could have made it like
maybe
at
not half, but
least 2 hours long. Maybe 2 hours 30 at a max, but 3 hours, absolutely no. Like, my
it's
God.
the kind of thing that I've always disliked it with back-to-back shot sequels, where it's like, yeah, they're supposed to be two halves of the same story, so you don't really need to make them extremely long, because now that means this entire like
would have made more
film is
sense.
essentially 5
I mean, this
hours
is just
long.
my opinion here, but it would have made more sense if you just made it the sort of same runtime, or very sort of slightly along the same runtime as Dead Man's Chest, because again, you've got that like 2-part story, so it kind of makes sense to just have a very similar kind of runtime, not a runtime of like however long Dead Man's Chest is and then 3 hours of a sequel. It's like, all right then.
Yeah, and to think, I think they had about 20 minutes that they ended up cutting, so it would have just been
Even
I think it was
longer.
like 3 hours 10. I think, yeah, it's really not needed at all. That being said, it's still, that's probably my biggest issue with it, is just that runtime. And the fact that there's just way too much in it, to be honest. There's way too many characters. Like, I forget that you've got like Chow Yun Fat in as Sao Feng for about 20 minutes.
Something like
but
that.
It feels like he's in for way too long. There's just way too many characters. And it really does blow it, especially in the second act, because there's so much of the second act I completely forgot.
Yeah, it kind of just throws everything at you. It's honestly
It
like
does,
you're a ship in the middle of the ocean, and like every other ship is just numerous amounts of characters, filler, and just the main stuff in the film, and it all just kind of clashes together, and then you're this poor little dainty little ship that is just going to get absolutely bombarded with information of all kinds.
Little schooner with a load of exposition cannonballs.
I would have said like a little schooner. Yeah, like from Assassin's Creed, you just that one lonely little schooner.
I was just about to say, all of my ship knowledge basically comes from Assassin's Creed 4, funnily enough. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the development, as I say, it was shot back to back with the previous film. Budget of around $300 million, making it the most expensive movie in history at the time. Funnily enough, overtaken by its sequel, which I think up until recently was considered the most expensive film of all time. It might have been, maybe Endgame might have topped that.
I would have thought Endgame
mightn't
have topped it. Maybe Avatar. I mean, Avatar was going to definitely be the next thing I would go to.
Well, I think the original Avatar is about 220 million, maybe 250. And at least you know where all the budget went on that one. But yeah, it was on Stranger Tides, the beta, so it was like 346, maybe close to 400 million. And you just sat there thinking, what is that going on? Really? I mean, at this point, probably like actors' contracts, maybe a bit of the VFX and a whole bunch of location stuff, because there is some really good, like...
Yeah, I think probably those three things
on
are
location stuff.
probably the biggest money consumers.
In terms of the reaction from critics at the time as well, and still now, I'm going to say quite mixed, to be honest. When you look at like Rotten Tomatoes, general consensus number is a dazzling 44.
Wow, really? Last time I looked at it, it was like 53% or something like that. It was like quite low 50s. Wow.
Well, I mean, unless there's suddenly been a bit of a renaissance on watching them, and then it's just dropped
I
it
mean,
again.
clearly, because I
know.
swear, like, I remember seeing it at, like, 50-odd%.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Dead Man's Chest might have been that. I think it wasn't particularly
Well,
high.
they're
'cause
just
I know
wrong
people
about
weren't big
Dead
on
Man's
that one.
Chest. They're just wrong.
Yes, you're all wrong about Dead Man's
They're all
Chest.
just wrong.
Yeah. And even the general consensus that you get from it is Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End provides the thrill and action scenes, but mixes in too many characters with too many incomprehensible plot threads. And to be honest, I agree.
Yeah, they're not wrong.
But I'm not. Yeah, but I'm not. I'm nowhere near as negative on it because I like these
Yeah, I'm
movies,
not gonna-
So this, when it gets,
How can I put, like, a piratey pun on this? I'm not going to throw me cannonballs because I don't agree with one thing.
I mean, you could try.
I mean, from the look of them, they are quite heavy, so yeah, I could try. That sounded way better in my head.
Anyway, yeah, it did. I might cut that out. Who knows? I have the power.
Well, it's
So,
not like
in
I was
terms of the
making a
main characters,
euphemism
of
to
course-
testicles.
But you have now,
Okay, yeah, I have now.
just like by saying it. Well done, Dan.
You're welcome. You're more than welcome. Yo-ho-ho.
No, I'm not. So in terms of the main characters, of course, we've got the core three. We've got a recently revived Captain Jack Sparrow. Well, Jack Sparrow. He's not really a captain. Again, bit of a sod. So I think I said in the Dead Man's Chest episode that was the last time you really guessed Jack Sparrow was like an actual human.
Yeah.
Rewatching At World's End, that's definitely still there. If anything, I'd say he's a little bit more optimistic, given the fact he's recently died, which I quite like, to be honest. I think he's still generally quite a good character, and he's not the focus still.
No, I wouldn't
which I
say he's
still
the
like.
focus. I mean, he's a big part of it, but he's in no way like the central lead, I'd say. It doesn't revolve around him.
Yeah, I do forget how much I like the back and forth between him and Barbossa. That's
I love
really
how
funny,
petty
especially
it
when
gets.
they're basically like the telescope
Yeah,
scene.
I was about to
will
say the
always make me
telescope
laugh.
scene where, like, it starts off where Barbossa has this, like, quite long one, and Sparrow's got this incy-wincy one, and then the next time they do it, like, Barbossa's got the same one, and then Jack Sparrow just whips out this, like, absolute monstrosity.
We should stress we're still talking about the telescopes because
Good
it's starting to sound a bit weird. Anyway,
Jack Sparrow was whipping out his black pearl.
you're not helping anything now. Interesting.
Yeah, that sounds actually more concerning. Well, who'd have thought they would make sexual innuendos in Pirates of the Caribbean?
I mean, there's a lot of them.
There is. I mean, hell, I mean, Jack Sparrow whips out a gigantic...
Are you quite finished? No. One thing I do actually really like with Jack is that he still continues doing that thing where he always presents himself as being mind-numbingly stupid in order to put people off so that he can win. I've always liked that with him. Even just like his way with words as
Four
well.
of you
when he
tried
just,
to kill me.
overly
One of you
explains
succeeded.
something. Oh, I love that line. That's so good.
Oh. You didn't sell him.
I mean, to be honest, the whole stuff in Davy Jones' locker, I'm still trying to figure out why. Well,
Do you know what it is?
suppose in retrospect,
Honest opinion, I think a lot of that could have been cut out.
oh
Like,
yeah,
if you know,
to be
I'd be
honest.
satisfied if it just had, like, the ship and the crabs just go down the hill. Like, all that other stuff could just probably be cut. You don't need all of that. I mean, yes, it is absolutely hilarious watching a variety of Johnny Depp clones do various things, especially the chicken clone. That is,
well, it's. I mean, I don't know if I missed this because for years I was convinced that the reason there was like so many versions of Jack Sparrow is because it's meant to represent the amount of souls that his soul was worth in the previous film.
oh
He had
yeah,
to get,
because
like,
David
100
Jones
souls for the price
mentions
of his
it, like,
own.
how many souls do you think my soul is worth? And he's like 100 souls. So yeah, I actually never clicked on that. That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, I thought that, but then when rewatching it, I'm sure there's a couple of shots when he's like talking and he's supposed to be talking to the rest of the crew and they've suddenly vanished from the entire
Yeah.
ship. But then, of course, you've got a couple of sequences later with like other little jacks and stuff. It's a really trippy film.
Oh, yeah.
As it turns out, it's really, really out there, and I still don't really know how to feel on it. I mean, the scene towards the end when he's on the Dutchman and one of the versions of himself is like sort of like part of the ship and he starts licking his own brain.
Nobody move.
And he's
I've
like,
dropped me brain.
I was like, you had a brain? That's so cool. You poor sod.
I love it how it even calls back to when he licks the rock, and instead it's just him just licking his brain.
And it's equally disturbing.
Yeah,
I don't know which is more disturbing, him licking his brain or him licking a crab.
the brain.
To be honest.
I think the brain is just
brain.
kind of overstepping a bit. Like, I mean, the rock's weird enough. The rock crab thing's weird enough, but the brain, very weird.
Yeah. Of course, like, one of the main themes about this franchise has always been, like, the pursuit of freedom, and that's definitely something that Jack's wanted since the first film. And then he's given the opportunity to, well, if I'm the one that stabs the heart of Davy Jones, I get to sail the sea forever. But he has to ferry souls. Yeah. And for a while, you do get the sense that he could do it. But then I like how he ends up being quite selfless in that he makes sure the Will is the one to stab the heart. Granted, because if he doesn't, he is just going to die and Elizabeth isn't going to see him again. But, like, he puts his own life on the line for that. And even, like, his reaction to when Will gets stabbed, I actually think is really sweet, to be honest. It's, like, genuine
Oh, yeah, it's general
concern
and shock.
Yeah, which is something you just don't get in the later films, especially the last one.
No, he's just kind of like...
isn't Jack Sparrow, it's just a cartoon.
Just kind of looks, he's like... okay.
Yeah. And to be honest, I do quite like the whole rhyming circle where we end with him where he was in the first film when he's just back on a dinky little ship that's probably going to sink in 5 seconds. Like, he just can't catch a break.
No, it's like he's just
all.
in pursuit of chaos.
Mm-hmm. Though I did forget that they do actually set up the Fountain of Youth at the end of this film. Because I completely forgot that happened, because he has the little...
Oh, yeah,
he has the remains
map.
of the map.
Yeah, because then it's Hector who gets his own ship and then realises that the centre of the map is actually missing and Sparrow took it.
Yeah, it's just really weird that they do actually... Because I thought it was a brand new thing that they went for with the Fourth Hunger, is loosely based on a children's story or something. But no, they actually suggest that they're going to do it in the third film. I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. Will as well. You've obviously got Will back, being like a full-on pirate this time. He's just like double crossing everyone in this film. He's basically become Jack Sparrow, just minus the dreadlocks and the piece of it
and the general insanity. Yeah,
and the general sense of insanity. Yeah.
But yeah, he absolutely is like a little Jack Sparrow because he just backstabs absolutely everybody.
Mm-hmm. But to be honest, I mean, it stems from him still wanting to save his father, so it's not just like him.
No, it is like it's an
going,
understandable
like,
goal. Like I'm not like, oh, well, that's stupid. Like, no, I actually see why he is a little backstabber.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, like of like the core three, he's the one that gets what he wants. You know, he is able to save his father, but he ends up being trapped to the Flying Dutchman by the end. Which again, even that, I mean, that entire sequence I do really like. And again, going back to how it's Jack that decides, yeah, Will should be the one to stab it, because then at least he gets to live, and Elizabeth still gets to see him just once every 10 years.
Yeah, and then give her his heart. I kind of worries me that, like, what happens if she has a declutter and she knocks the chest out of, like, the window or something?
I'd like to think there's like a joke somewhere where anytime there's any sort of like stress put on the heart, if it's like jiggling around in like the chest, and there's just him on the Flying Dutchman
having a heart
just
attack,
sort of like wobbling around, just like what the hell is going on here? Just like, Elizabeth. It's like, Just like, sorry, I dropped it off the shelf.
Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, with Elizabeth as well, she has also gone full pirate. I do like the callback to the first film where it opens with her on the Navy ship singing, and here you have her as a pirate also
I
singing.
didn't really like that.
Yeah. But I mean, I like it with her though. I mean, the more I think about it, the more she might be my favorite character of the three.
No, because especially
in,
like her
in
arc
the
across the
movies.
entire 3 film. She's like the most anti-pirate person in the first film, and then she kind of warms up to it in the second film, and then the third film, she's like, yeah, you know what, screw it.
And she also becomes the king of the Brethren court.
Yes.
Which I do actually really like. Again, it's like Jack kind of manipulating everything, just like, I'm not going to do it. No one's going to listen to me. They'll listen to her, so there we
See,
go.
I also love that
You
scene
do
because
it.
Jack Sparrow is purely just the chaotic instigator. Because every pirate votes for himself, and he's just like, Elizabeth Swann. And everyone's like,
what?
seriously?
Like, no, you can't do that. I was like, yeah, I can.
everyone's like, why? You could have voted for so-and-so, or yourself. Nah.
But no, I mean, like, I do agree. It is a nice arc for her where she starts off absolutely despising, like, the concept of piracy, and then there she is at the end. Absolutely.
Have you ever noticed she
utterly
kind of sounds a bit like
embracing us.
Hermione Granger in that first film? You're a pirate? Holy cricket! You're Will Turner!
I didn't think about that.
I know. It only really just clicked with me.
All of a sudden, I'm going to have to watch the Harry Potter films again. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that.
Well, you're not going to watch Prisoner of Azkaban because you're going to get scared. I don't like the werewolf.
I don't like the werewolf. I don't mind it. So in terms of the antagonists, though, of course, we've still got the core 2 from the previous ones. We've got Beckett. Beckett. Yeah. Who's obviously now in possession of Davy Jones's heart. He's now controlling, like, all of the sea. Every single little
Like,
bit
you know
of
what
it.
it is? You make it sound ridiculous, but it's true. He literally is.
That is literally, yeah.
He really is.
And even with the opening scene, like, any form of piracy is just immediately just, like, thrust upon, to the point that you also execute a kid, which...
It's very dark.
That's always been quite dark. Yeah, it's very dark, to be honest.
It's like when they
he's
start
just like
singing
an
the song
absolutely-
and like one of the Commodores goes up to Beckett. It's like they started singing and Beckett's just like flicking a coin. He's like, finally, I was getting bored. Like Jesus.
Yeah, he's just like a really, like, truly, like, awful person. That being said, one thing I do really like, and it's something I've picked up on more, like, in, like, more recent watches, after the Maelstrom sequence, and it's then going to be the Black Pearl versus the Endeavour, as soon as that thing goes down, everyone else just leaves.
Yeah. But he has to just like,
Like, at first I
go
always
in
thought-
such a dramatic way.
But I think as well is that really does sum up his character as a whole. Like, he is completely useless and weak when he doesn't have any sort of power, and everyone else knows it. Because I mean, I think for years I was like, that's just really lazy. We could have just had like a really awesome sequence of the Black Pearl just going through different ships, which seems really, really silly. But in retrospect, it makes sense for Beckett as a character. And despite how over the top his death scene is, it's still quite fun to watch.
It is quite fun to watch.
And of course, we've had like the many memes. I mean, I'm sure you've sent us the meme before of just like everyone destroying Beckett and his ship, and it just keeps on cutting to different films with loads of explosions and guns and stuff. I'm sure Dutch from Predator rocks up as well to just completely mow down the Endeavour. And I'm just sat there thinking,
why does this
that
work?
still works. Yeah. It's like, why does it work so well?
No, I think
you
it's,
do have Davy
it is
Jones as
absolutely
well.
one of those villains, like where he basically has every other thing do it for him. Like, I mean, with obviously he's in command of the Flying Dutchman and Davy Jones. He's basically got Davy Jones by the balls, like literally, or by the heart. But you know, we're gonna say by the balls because that just sounds more sensical.
Same difference.
But it's just like, okay, yeah, there's pirates. Go kill the pirates. Or I'm going to just murder you.
It does kind of depower Jones, both in terms of, like, literally, but also, like, in terms of, like, the fear factor. You kind of... I wouldn't say it's funny. You just kind of pity him a little bit.
Well, to be honest, he just kind of makes Davy Jones his little pet. It's like his little dog.
Which is odd, because he got Davy Jones to kill his own pet.
the irony.
Which...
That whole scene is really quite, like...
Kraken so quickly.
It's like, I thought you understand that when I ordered you to kill your pet. So he says pet as well. Like, he puts such a sarky little accent on it. Like, oh, you mean business, don't you little pompous barnacle.
What is it with the
I don't know, I'm
barnacles
trying to
this
think
week?
of other,
I don't
like,
get
sea
it.
things, and barnacle is just what I'm going to.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I suppose you kind of have to get rid of the I was about to say the quacken. I'm just thinking of like a giant rubber duck. If I'm saying that, just like release the quacken and it's just a giant duck.
Instead of like all the Kraken sound, all you hear is... like a little rubber ducky.
Dead man's duck. At Feather's End. Anyway.
At Squeaky's End.
Squeaker, there we go. Dead man's squeak. God. But yeah, I think it was quite smart to get rid of the Kraken.
Crocken.
There we go. Crocken. Like, you kind of had to get it out of play very, very quickly, so you might as well do it off screen, because otherwise Jones is literally just gonna be like, oh no, Beckett's in control, Kraken. Just which is sad, because I do really like the Kraken.
Oh yeah,
it's really cool.
It is really really cool, and it is absolutely like a terrifying aspect of the second film. Because you have absolutely no idea what he's capable of. You just think he's a very relentless sea monster, and then he has even bigger sea monster for pet.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he becomes slightly more of a threat by the end when you have the maelstrom sequence, which is awesome. And even his death, I think for a long time I thought that's just quite sudden. He just sort of falls off his ship. But then, of course, his death was always going to be consumed by the sea. That's just how it was always going to go.
Yeah.
And I always forgot this. I think I remember from like an action figure years ago where you could take off Davy Jones's hat, and it's just like a bald head, and you see it briefly as he falls off the ship. And I remember seeing it thinking, he looks so wrong. Without his hat
doesn't
on.
it? It just looks so weird.
Just looks. I mean,
granted, he looks weird anyway, but like, you know.
Well, yeah.
Just bald octopus man.
Yeah, he somehow looks even more like a demonic version of Squidward when he doesn't have the hat on.
It's like a very demonic, like hybrid
really
of Larry the Lobster and Squidward tentacles.
Oh my god, it's literally that. The hacks that were stealing from Nickelodeon the whole time.
Dear me.
I mean, in terms of like the story and stuff, it's, as I say, it still retains a lot of the core themes of the previous films, like the price of freedom, and like especially like overarching villains, sort of like squeezing your identity from you. That being said, it's a bit more muddled.
Yeah.
With way too many characters. Like, I like how it still expands on the lore, especially with the Brethren Court stuff. That's quite interesting. I know it's like loosely based on like a kind of court of pirates that was around like during the golden age of piracy. Not to the extent this was. Wasn't nearly as dramatic and weird.
Yeah, when you've got like Fort Knox of like pirate barricades.
Well, yeah, 'cause I can remember seeing like when they sail into Shipwreck's Cove, and you've got like honestly, I still don't know what it's supposed to be. It just looks like a load of like buildings or ships that are just on top of each other.
Loads of like ships just sort of stacked on each other. It's like a really terrible Jenga game.
Yeah, I mean, it must have just been like an accident.
And the Lego
and they just
version of
thought,
that on
like
the Lego Pirates of the Caribbean game
can't-
was just infuriatingly confusing.
Oh yeah, because it's very easy to get lost.
Oh yeah,
isn't
like
it?
you go up one way and then you just don't know how the hell you got up there.
I can't. I see. I remember quite a bit of the Lego game. I can't remember playing at World's End that much. I think I might have actually played more of Curse of the Black Pearl, and then I think I jumped straight to On Stranger Tides because I was like, "Wow, this is better than the film."
It is.
The irony. All it took was it to be a little bit more plastic, and to get rid of the dialogue,
And a bit more Lego-y.
as it turns out, and a little bit more Lego-y. I mean, Lego Davy Jones is adorable, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, as I say, even though the story is still kind of muddled, and again with that runtime, it's still. I mean, I've just checked 161 minutes.
Yeah, it's...
And you feel every minute.
You
of
really
that.
do, especially in the filler stuff, like all the stuff in Davy Jones' locker, like just bits and pieces when they're not really doing much. They're just sort of going over the plan yet again. Like, we really didn't need this. We know what the goal is. Just get to it.
Mm-hmm. But I think as well, it's especially with that second act. I forgot the South End comes back and then is immediately blown up.
Yeah.
And I forgot that Norrington was in this as well, and he's also killed in just like a random scene, also by Will's father, which I completely forgot. There's just way too much that I just
To be
completely
honest, I do
forgot.
like the Norrington death bit because it's Will's father is literally becoming consumed by the Dutchman's power. I think because, you know, he's very sort of hostile. He's lost a lot of his memory and stuff, especially in the brig scene with Elizabeth Swann. And he's often like repeating himself, like, Will's coming back to me, he made me a promise, etc. like that. He's just, he looks like he's becoming more of the ship, which is, you know, the fate if you you do service to an eternity. You know, you just become part of the crew, part of the ship, which is the motto I just absolutely love. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
I could use that at work and just see how many people actually react to that. Just like, no, not that.
That would be terrifying, actually.
Yeah.
Like you just going
like,
up to
Regan,
like
can you
some
go on until it's, like,
random
part of the
customer.
crew?
It's like part of the crew, part of the ship.
Part of the
crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
And it's just like, Regan, can you please make a cappuccino, please? Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Part of the tea room, part of the museum. Part of the tea room, part of the museum.
Yeah, you know what? Next on there, I'm totally doing that. In terms of my favorite moments, I mean, you know, I said before, like the Maelstrom sequence is probably my favorite because despite the fact that it is like quite overly long, I do appreciate like how practical it is, especially when I've seen behind the scenes and literally made full-size versions of the Black Pearl and the Flying Dutchman and just kept them rotating against one another with like proper wind and rain effects. I'm just sort of thinking, you know, you didn't have to do that.
But you did anyway.
And yeah, it is kind of and it is kind of covered in CGI, and I do think as awesome as it is watching Jack Sparrow and Davy Jones sort of like duke it out on like the rigging of the ship, it's silly. Because like if any of them are clever, they'll stop going for the sword and just go for the legs.
Kick him in his crustacean leg.
Well, claw. Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, some of the sound effects that come from Davy Jones is just hilarious. Like, even when he gets shot in the hand when he's holding the chest, he's like... I'm like, Bill Nye was having a field day. Just like, how many takes did he do with that? Just like, I can make it.
Yeah, like it's just like pain in Scottish.
Pain in Scottish. What?
Because it is, because he just makes like the most random of sounds sometimes. Like,
a lost bird.
A lost
always
bird
loved that
who learned to fly.
It's just like the last bit when he's like bailed. I'm like, the Scottish do not say bird like that. I should know. I've met enough of them.
Looky
They do
here,
not say
boys. A
bailed.
lost bird. who learned to fly.
Just...
I think the stuff on the ship when... I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, much like with the fight scene when they're just on top of the mast and just having a little sword fight. Because it absolutely is. It's basically when Jack Sparrow starts, like, duking out Davy Jones, and Davy Jones does that thing where he can just, like, you know, just go into things because he just can. No, not like that. Good grief.
He can morph through objects.
But he just, like, morphs...
There isn't, like, a nice way of saying
morphs
it.
into, like, the anchor thingy-majig, and Jack Sparrow spins around, and he just, like, scares him with all his tentacles, and Jack Sparrow's scream just makes me laugh way too hard. She's like, ah!
Yeah, you know, it is, like, a little bit of levity in, like, an otherwise ridiculous scene. But I still really like it. I just love how, like, at one point he just takes, like, a plank of wood and just slaps him across the head with this. Like, that is... I like that. It's just like, yeah, I'll just use this. There we go.
You done Jonesy up.
Yeah, that's probably my favourite sequence. Otherwise, I'd probably say, like, the Brethren Court stuff, again, is, while really, really long, it's really interesting, especially when you hear, when they're like, this is the 4th Brethren Court. I'm like, when was the last one? Like, it was either very, very recently, and you've just never mentioned it, or it was a very, very long time ago, because they also make it out as if it was hundreds of years ago. I'm like, no, it wasn't. It just wasn't. But I do love the logic of the pieces of 8, where it's just pieces of just random things that they've got.
I'm sure Gibbs says it's like it's
ridiculous.
just pieces of whatever we have in our pockets at the time.
At the time. So maybe there's just like a random little cup. I mean, if it was more modern, there would be a bit of chewing.
Yeah,
gum,
oh,
sure.
absolutely. Yeah, because there's like a little cup that goes in somebody's spectacles, a playing card,
and there's a card, a playing card, and like the only person who's got an actual piece of 8 is Sparrow on his forehead.
Everything else is just junk.
I mean, yeah, that's probably my other favourite thing, because I mean, there's not a whole lot, because it's just a lot of just random stuff in it. What about you, though? What's your favourite stuff in the film?
Definitely the Maelstrom stuff. I think that is just so badass. I'd probably say like when the Dutchman and the Black Pearl just totally go against Beckett. I mean, yes, it is absolutely over the top.
Yes, actually,
but it's brilliant as well. Like, it is absolutely brilliant because he's so stunned. He's just like, it's just good business. Like, he's so stunned he doesn't know what to say. So everyone's just like jumping off the ship while he's just slowly walking down as the whole ship just blows up behind him. I love it how not one cannonball hit him during that entire scene. Like, he's walking down the stairs and every step he takes, the stair above him just blows off. And then finally,
it's the kind of film
something blows up and then he just goes with it.
Yeah, it's the kind of sequence where I think if it was done now, it wouldn't nearly be as ridiculous. Because they'd want to take it really, really seriously.
Yeah.
Like, really seriously. Whereas this film's like, well, we've done the heavy lifting, we can indulge a little bit. In this case, indulge way too much and just... Yeah. I mean, visually as well, I still think the film is actually still a really good looking film.
Oh, yeah.
Especially practically. Like all the sets and stuff like that, and of course, again with the Maelstrom stuff, like actual ships being used. That being said, I think the VFX occasionally look a bit wonky.
I think more or less so in the Maelstrom sequence, particularly when there's a lot going on. I mean, the stuff with like
there's a lot of random people flying.
Yeah,
around.
the flying around bits. I think they look a little bit ropey every now and then, but everything else not so bad. But then again, this is going to be, it's what happens.
Well, to be honest, I mean, when I've been researching, I did see that the VFX companies only had 5 months to do all the VFX, and I'm like, yeah, we're still feeling that. 2023, and we still know how it feels. It's just like a meme at this point, just like, we just didn't have enough time to do the VFX. I'm like...
I forgot to mention that probably the most horrible scene in the film that is a favourite is when Davy Jones just gets the key off what's-his-face.
Oh, God, yeah. who I didn't. Yeah, it's David Schofield's character, who I always forget was an American Werewolf.
Yeah.
I find that brilliant. Just like he survives the werewolf, but he's killed by Squidward. Interesting.
It's just so horrible. Like, ugh. You see like a tentacle
Oh,
just poke
yeah.
out of his nose. I'm like, ew, gross.
Well, I mean, because I'm just morbidly curious. I can remember like pausing it a lot when I was a kid, just to try and see, even though like his face is like blurred out and stuff as he falls down. But as you pause it, you can sort of see just how like red and sort of like bulbous his face is now, because it's just had a lot of tentacles thrown through every single hole. And it is just awful. Stop smirking. That's doubly awful if you're smirking.
He explored his portal.
It was Starboard, actually. I should have waited for just like one more second as like you were drinking your rum there.
You should have, yeah.
I should have done. I think as well, I think Hans Zimmer's score, I think, is the best of the three, to be honest.
Yeah. Any stuff with like Davy Jones and his crew with a score on that, yeah. Always loved it.
I also really love the new love theme that he creates for Will and Elizabeth. I think that's really, really cool. Like on the score, I think it's called One Day, which I think is overused to death in the later films, especially in the fifth film. I think it's used quite a lot, which makes sense because you've got Will back in that one for 2 scenes, and bloody Elizabeth Swann back for 7 seconds,
if not less.
If not less, and doesn't get a single line.
No, she just kind of like looks at the camera like a mime, and you've just got to assume what she would be saying.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that she was added in at the last minute because test audiences demanded it. I'm like, of course they did. They essentially demanded another adult, basically. I mean, to be honest, I mean it's difficult to say with the scores because I mean all of them are terrific.
Yeah,
even for the fifth film, which isn't.
They are all good. Like
Hans
even
Zimmer.
the later films, which are just rubbish. If you haven't cemented that enough, they are rubbish. The scores are good for them.
Yeah,
That's probably
I mean,
the only thing I like about them.
Yeah, because I mean, even the fifth film's got Jeff Zanelli who does the score. He's like one of Hans Zimmer's proteges, so he does end up reusing a lot of previous stuff. But one of the tracks, and that's called Treasure, and that's used towards the end of that film when they're on like the anchor going back up the ship. Utterly silly scene, but I love that score. I listen to it way too much.
It is a great bit of music, but my goodness, the scene it's paired with is just.
Oh yeah, it's stupid.
You know, you see some.
Because I mean, like, it's a shame.
You see some weird stuff in Pirates of the Caribbean, but when you see like 5 or 6 people on a gigantic anchor, just going up like Superman is something else. I tell you.
It's just weird how, like, they always said, like, I mean, I guess this is the point when we briefly talk about those, and I do mean briefly.
They exist.
But even with those ones, yeah, they do exist. They are available to watch. I don't know why you would. I don't know why I did. I guess I'm just like a bit of a completionist on that. But I like how they kept on saying, "Oh yeah, we're looking to the first film for inspiration." I'm like, mate, you're looking for the third film. You're looking to Atwell's End in terms of like logistical craziness.
Well, yeah, because you want to make like your 4th and 5th film about craziness, bombastic craziness.
Well, it's weird because the 4th film, I'll give it this, is, and you know, like I was talking about this with my girlfriend when I watched, because we saw A Haunting in Venice a couple of days ago. It was pretty good actually. That one's decidedly smaller in terms of the previous film, and On Stranger Tides, despite having a bigger budget, is significantly smaller. I actually don't mind that. And to be honest, Blackbeard's really, really cool, to be honest.
Yeah, he is really cool, but I hate the witchcrafty stuff. It's just stupid.
Oh yeah, it's stupid.
I hate the fact that he has a magic sword more than anything.
To be honest, I just find that hilarious.
And he can control rope. Like, what if you're just in like some random cave? Is like a rope just gonna go do 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 like a snake charmer?
Yeah, but then at that point, if he's able to use that to like power up his ship, why the hell does he have a crew?
Yeah,
Doesn't need it. It's just like a waste of space. It's a waste of bodies.
apparently not.
Although, actually, a bit of trivia on that one. The Queen Anne's Revenge, which is a badass ship, to be honest, is literally just the Black Pearl's ship from the previous films that they've just built some stuff on top of it. And once you see it, you're like, oh yeah,
wow.
it is. Because I recognise that bit. I recognise that bit of flooring.
So they took the Black Pearl and they just gave it a lick of red paint. Ta-da.
Yes, it did. I've just got to love the line when he's like, how do you know this is actually Blackbeard's ship? And he's like, I've seen the name of it on the back of the ship. I'm like, it's not a license plate.
Oh, Scrum.
I quite like Scrum. I mean, yeah, in those ones, there's a couple of things I like, but as I said, there was no way we could do full episodes on it because it would probably be like what happened when we did Shazam 2, where we might as well just run out of stuff to talk about.
We rated it to death.
Because there is... Well, I don't even think we berated. We're just like, it's fine.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. Whereas those ones, no, they're not. In terms of final thoughts, though, on At World's End, because we've spoken briefly about the sequels that we're never going to talk about, as I say, muddled as hell, overly long, 657 things going on. It might as well be the Amazing Spider-Man 2 again. But unlike Amazing Spider-Man 2, this is still quite fun for what it is. Definitely still the weakest of the three. Got a bit of heart to it. And for what it is, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
it's
hate
still
it nearly
it's still very
as much as I used
entertaining.
to.
But biggest letdown for me, I think it's just runtime. There's definitely parts where you're just like, you know, you kind of do one of those like sighs where you're just like, we could really be doing something else here. Like, I don't know, maybe going after Davy Jones instead of just like stopping off at the local tavern for some reason.
Yeah, I still don't get that. I really don't.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and also, I completely forgot, Naomi Harris, the character, is revealed to be a god, and then gets really, really giant, and then turned into a load of crabs. I forgot about that.
Yeah, still don't understand that stuff, but hey-ho.
Calypso. Or something like that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I completely forgot. I saw the film a couple of weeks ago, and I completely forgot that then. I've completely forgot about it now. It's like, oh yeah, she turns 70 feet tall and doesn't sink the ship.
Yeah, that was my question. How on earth did she not just sink the ship?
Exactly, it would have been a very quick end, just like, oh.
Would have sank like a rock.
Okay. Yeah. Ugh. But yes, that is our thoughts on Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End and our conclusion to the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. Didn't realise we were going to do all three, but considering we talked about the first film and we both
we kind of just set it up, really.
We kind of had to end it somewhere. I'm just glad I decided, let's not talk about 4 and 5. So thank you very much for listening to us rant about some pirates for a couple of weeks. Next week, though, because Dan completely forgot, we are returning to a video game that is not Halo. In fact, this is considered one of our favourite games of all time.
Slime Rancher.
I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that there was an application form process open if you wanted to become a new co-host for this podcast. If Dan starts getting on my nerves again,
Dan gets on your nerves all the time.
That's still an option.
What makes this podcast so fun.
Exactly, and you know what? I'm gonna have to get a new co-host for when we talk about The Simpsons Hit and Run for its 20th anniversary.
God, I'm old.
That's not the reaction I was expecting. I was expecting like a couple of smirks and gleeful squeaks and stuff. This is going to be rubbish now.
Yay, Simpsons Hit and Run. Whoa. God, I'm old. That better?
Yeah, sure, I'll take it. Damn it, we're going to get a lot of those.
Oh, there's going to be...
Yes, we're going to be talking
There's
about...
going to be does, there's going to be many expletives.
Yeah, probably. But yes, we'll be talking about The Simpsons Hit and Run on next week's episode. In terms of graveyard chit-chat though, Dan, What are we discussing?
Well, normally I would just like do the whole thing where I just hinted it, but I've seen as how I did a pretty poo job of it last time.
Pretty poo job.
You know, when we were talking about Scooby-Doo on Fibber's Island.
Yeah, you're gonna have to listen to that one to understand the concept of that joke.
Yeah, you really, really are.
Yeah, listen to
We
it.
are talking about the 2019 horror film Ready or Not.
Which I'm very much looking forward to talking about, because we haven't really spoken about it even like
Oh,
outside
no,
of
like,
this
we
podcast,
haven't-
actually. I don't think.
I think we've mentioned it in like passing on a couple of episodes, but never like in any depth. So I think it'd be fun just to do an episode on it.
Yeah, definitely. So you can look forward to that. We've got Simpsons Hit and Run on the Real Podcast is next week, and we've got Ready or Not over on Graveyard Chit Chat. So look forward to that. Thank you very much for listening, and until then, it is goodbye from Dan.
Ta-ta, me hearties.
Couldn't help yourself, could
No.
you? No. And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.